Hi, Josh Keegan here. In 2017, Australia officially launched our own space agency, and it got me thinking. We have spent a number of years contributing to other countries' space ambitions, and the Australian space industry has been crying out for representation for decades. And I began to wonder, what have we been doing in space? Have we been involved? In this video, or rather series of videos, I will unpack Australia's surprising history in space, why there has been a need for the Australian Space Agency, leading to the Australian government deciding in 2017 that this was officially needed. There's a lot to get through, so grab your cup of coffee, or at least your favourite beverage, and let's get started. This look into Australia's involvement in space starts with my own personal story and journey. My earliest and fondest memory was watching very grainy footage of testing of the Space Shuttle Enterprise in 1977, riding on the back of a heavily modified 747, with a white cone covering the Aerojet Rocketdyne RS-25 main engines. This was one of the Space Shuttle's first drop tests, working out their aerodynamic profile and capability. Now you have to remember, unlike the United States, here in Australia we only saw a few highlights of testing being carried out during the evening news. This footage was grainy at best, and for a budding young space nerd, my levels of frustration were high, as I couldn't find out more about what was going on. And yes, before you ask, this was in the days before the internet. But I was a kid, so the frustration didn't last very long, and I was easily distracted. When the STS-1 was first launched, again I watched with wide-eye awe as essentially an aircraft was strapped to a rocket and sent hurtling into space. As a little kid, little did I know that during the first launch of the STS-1, Australia was already supporting NASA and other nations, and we have been since 1962. The Parkes Observatory, made famous by a little Aussie film called The Dish, we supported the very first interplanetary mission, the Mariner 2, as it flew by Venus. It's our access to higher than average clear skies that means Australia's location is frequently in the prime spot to support missions to deep space, including one of the most important, the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. So yeah, we've been supporting every other country's space ambitions for the last 56 years. It's pretty impressive. The Parkes Observatory, as a side note, is run by Australia's own CSIRO, or the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation. So let's go back to our surprising history for a moment. So while I was looking into our history in space, which ended up with the formation of the Australian Space Agency, I found that here in Australia, we are the third nation, count that, 3, to build and launch our own satellite capable of reaching low Earth orbit with the WRE Sat-1 in 1967. The WRE Sat was a joint venture between the Weapons Research Establishment, the WRE bit, and SAT meaning satellite, and the University of Adelaide, demonstrating the Australian capability for developing a satellite using advanced technology with existing low-cost launch facilities at Woomera in South Australia. Take that, SpaceX. This is the most practical thing you'll ever see. The satellite is on the back of a truck, or as we Aussies like to call it, a ute, before it's integrated into the main booster just before launch. This is just amazing. An Aussie at its finest. So that begs the question, why on earth is an OECD nation like ours without our own national space agency? This is, considering as a nation, we have reached low Earth orbit, which is something many other nations and commercial companies are struggling with, and we did it 52 years ago. So this is where, unfortunately, our fantastic history gets lost along with any dreams of a space agency, as things become quickly embroiled in political rhetoric and underfunding. where we've missed many opportunities over the decades to take our place in the global space industry. Now, I'm not going to go into the ongoing struggle, but please let me know in the comments below if you'd like to know more about our turbulent and very political history. Personally, and this is pure speculation on my part, I like to think that Elon Musk may have something to do with assisting to change the minds of our politicians. Now, you may recall back in September 2017, Elon attended the International Astronautical Conference in Adelaide to talk about the BFR, well, now Starhopper and Starship. And whilst he was there, he journeyed out to the Horndale Power Reserve to talk about the newly installed 100 megawatt Tesla battery. So having a person like Elon talk about rockets and the future of sustainable power and generation and storage, somewhere in there, anywhere, either Elon had conversations with, or he simply coming to Australia was enough to change the minds, because the Australian Space Agency announcement was made at the exact same conference. Now, I'm not sure if any of this is true, of course, but the reality possibly has more to do with the thousands of hours and decades of campaigning by those in the Australian space industry behind the scenes that won out in the end. And it's only this week that the agency has also gained ongoing funding as part of the federal budget, supporting launch infrastructure and STEM initiatives for our next generation of Australian astronauts. Despite all of our missed opportunities, well, in terms of launches at any rate, I'm proud to say that Australia still managed to support some of the biggest missions in space, and the information I found took me completely by surprise, especially the bit about us having our own low Earth orbit launch capability. That was quite staggering. When researching for this video, I managed to uncover tons more information that just wouldn't fit into this episode unless it turned into a 25-minute documentary. So I've saved all that information for the next episode on Australia's surprising history in space, where I'll be taking a more in-depth look at our contributions throughout the decades to come up with a top 10 list of missions we have supported through the Deep Space Network. In a future episode, I'll also have an in-depth look at the WRE-Sat-1 and the rocket that made us into a spacefaring nation. If there's anything you'd like to see under joshkeegan.com, please let me know in the comments below. And if you work in the Australian space industry, I'd really, really, really love to chat with you. Please reach out and get in touch, as I'd like to showcase your efforts in our rebooted space industry. I'm calling it Space Australia 2.0. If you like this video, please hit subscribe. And if you like the content, including some of my educated speculation, I'm probably misinformed, please support me on Patreon. Your support on Patreon allows me to continue to delve more deeply into the Australian space industry and our involvement as a nation. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay caffeinated. I wonder if anybody will really notice my voice broke during that.